Hello, nerds. I have a very special episode for us today because we have a rare intersection of my interest in public policy, which everybody that subscribes to this channel knows a lot about. But as some of you know, I'm also involved in the tech industry, and lately I've been doing some small tech investments in early stage companies. And one of them is in a company called Truleo that AT is the founder and CEO of. So he agreed to come on the show because they do really cool stuff around AI and policing. So welcome to the show, AT.
We certainly do. Thanks for having me, Tom. Appreciate being here. Thank you.
Yeah. Why don't we start with a little bit of background about yourself, where are you joining us from, and then we'll get into the Truleo story.
Sure. So yeah, I'm from Chicago, one of four boys. Oldest brother, youngest brother military, oldest brother still in law enforcement, and the two middle boys, we work at Truleo. I founded the company, and I've got a brother that runs our success team. So my background is private sector quant finance, wrote trading algorithms for banks and trading firms for many years. And it turns out that technology is needed. Natural language processing is pretty cool. And we had a lot of cool toys in the private sector that the public sector wanted. And along the way, I joined various police foundations. The latest foundation I'm on is the FBI National Academy. It's kind of like Top Gun school at Quantico. And if you want to be a police chief, you go live at Quantico for 3 months. You sleep in a dorm and you meet people like me and maybe some criminologists and some other people. And so I had cool toys in the private sector working on transcription and analysis of large data sets. And it turns out a lot of people in the public sector were interested in this technology. And so I saw a problem and decided to launch a company to solve that problem.
Wow. So we're going to get into the problem that you're solving with Truleo. Before we do that, I had the experience a long time ago now, back in '99, of working at a startup with one of my brothers. I'm the youngest of three sons. That was a little stressful working with my brother. It sounds like you guys found a way to make it work.
Yeah, I'm in Chicago and he works remotely. But as much as my oldest brother, who's at the bureau, Quantico, I see him often. We talk about our business as much as anyone else in Truleo. So I feel like it's definitely sort of a family affair.
I love it. And when you started Truleo, was it always around badge cam kind of analysis, or did it start in some other application of NLP?
So, Tom, my previous company, GreenKey, Tejas and I founded that, my co-founder. We ran that for 7 years. It was acquired. Along the way, most people don't realize this, Motorola became an investor in GreenKey because they were Chicago-based, and we had won a bunch of awards. So Motorola knocked on the door and said, hey, you guys are doing some cool stuff. We want to transcribe and analyze 911 calls with your technology at GreenKey. And this is like 4 or 5 generations ago of what we were doing. So we met the whole Motorola C-suite team, and we started to understand different workflows they were working on, like voice interfaces and body cam analysis and 911 analysis. They had just acquired a company called WatchGuard, a body camera company. So it was way back in like 2018, 19, while I was at GreenKey running a fintech company, that we started to have some projects that we worked on for various public safety agencies. Like I said, Tejas and I were very good at what we did. And in the private sector, when you're transcribing and analyzing calls for Goldman Sachs and Bank of America, the bar is very high. The quality of service, the quality of product you need to provide is very, very high. So we started to get noticed in the public sector for our ability to transcribe and analyze calls at scale.
Okay, got it. And then ultimately you decide, so did Tejas and you join up again for Truleo?
Yeah, exactly. So GreenKey's acquired in 21.
Mm-hmm.
And we had been talking about Truleo. We knew we wanted to go do something 100% in the public safety business because our, GreenKey's board, it was fintech, it was financial markets guys, it was, and so we thought once GreenKey was acquired, we want to do something 100% in public safety. We were really inspired by the mission. We were really inspired by the problem. We thought the problem was huge, right? Police morale, recruiting, retention super low, trust in the police has collapsed. This is right after George Floyd in March of 2020. And we really started to understand why the problem exists in the first place. We went and met Motorola folks and Axon folks, the body camera manufacturers. We asked a lot of questions like, hey, why don't you guys transcribe and analyze this data? This is, NLP, or I should say transcription at the time was 30 years old technology. And NLP was getting cheaper and cheaper and things were moving to GPU. And so it was becoming possible. So it was based on their responses and the realization that they weren't going to do it, number one. And then number two, we realized that they don't own the data, that the taxpayers do, the police department does, and that there was very little they could do to prevent a company like Truleo from processing this data. And so a lot of stars aligned, and we had to go and do a lot of fact checking and make sure that we could solve the problem, that it was a defensible solution, that we could figure out a way to make money for a long time, but also that we could measure the impact in what we were doing, that as we give somebody our solution, we could actually measure, are they going to have less non-compliant people? Are they going to have less upset people? Basically, are we going to be able to measure and change police behavior and show that in a quantifiable way? So once we realized we could do all of that, we became very excited and started Truleo.
So for those who have never heard of Truleo, what's the kind of quick and dirty explanation of what you guys actually do?
Yeah, it's sort of like Gong.io for policing, right? The police are in the sales business. They sell compliance. If you look at 98% of their interactions, it's taking statements from witnesses and victims. So if you look at policing through the lens of customer service, you say, what do we want cops to say or avoid saying in order to generate the best outcomes possible? And so it turns out only 2 or 3% of their interactions are what I would call cops and robbers, right? Somebody's being pursued or arrested. Most of it is talking to grandmas and grandpas and moms and dads. And so you want to put in place a incentive platform where cops give introduction, they hand out a business card, they give a lot of explanation, because a lot of people pull out cell phones and they record interactions. And what you don't want to happen is, for example, you don't want cops to just do command, because I told you so, right? Because I told you so, get out of the car. You want an officer to give a lot of explanation. You want to say, ma'am, the reason I need you to put out that cigarette is because some people try to hide alcohol on their breath, and I want to make sure that's not what you're doing. That's the type of behavior you want to incentivize and recognize. And you want to give cops credit. That's another big thing that's not happening, and that changes with Truleo. When you give out de-escalation attempts, we'll give you credit for that. When you use positive language, you'll get credit. You get recognized. You get something called a high professionalism score. And so all of that sort of virtual attaboy, none of that was in place prior to Truleo. Imagine being an officer, just going out every day. Nobody knows you're doing a good job. Your supervisor doesn't know. The sergeant doesn't know, because none of those body camera videos are being reviewed. None of the citizens are writing letters to the chief saying you've done such a great job. You're only going to get a complaint. So it's a very sort of thankless job. And Truleo, even though it's a robot, thanking these cops and sending them attaboys, we see through our testing and through the studies and the random control trials that officers that get Truleo, their morale improves, their officer wellness improves, recruiting, retention, everybody wins. Community outcomes get better, but also the officer is appreciated.
Yeah, it sounds like kind of Fitbit or gamification for a police officer, and they're humans too. So positive reinforcement, I'm sure,
Exactly.
results in some behavioral changes. So prior to something like Truleo, is it the case that the badge cam videos that we all kind of see on police officers, uniforms these days, that's only reviewed like when some terrible thing happens? Like is it
That's
not
exactly right.
required to be reviewed like on a regular, like random audits and things?
That's exactly right. So less than 1% of these videos are ever reviewed by a human, unless there's a horrific use of force or civilian complaint. Those videos are not going to be watched. Now, some states, very few, will implement a random review where you've got to review one video per officer per quarter.
Mm-hmm.
What happens there is a bunch of bias happens. Okay, so cops hate it. They hate these random reviews. I don't like random reviews because they're full of bias. You've got a supervisor that goes and picks the shortest video possible, especially for the officers that he or she likes.
Yeah.
If I don't like you, I'm going to pick a real long video and I'm going to try to find something you've done. Maybe you didn't click your seatbelt when you were driving. And so you don't want a human involved in this process because it's full of bias. You want a fair playing field. You want to stick these videos through an objective platform like Truleo. It surfaces the labels. And then a better process would be my supervisor has to review 2 of my traffic stops, 2 of my domestic violence calls, 2 of my uses of force, 2 of my pursuits, 2 of my de-escalation attempts. You get to sort out the labels and make it much more fair. And then the supervisor's not wasting their time watching me drive around for 20 minutes. They're actually just watching the moments that are of value in those videos. Either something I could have done better, said better, done differently, right? So for example, a young officer, I'm definitely going to go watch their non-compliant persons. I want to see what happens. How does this young officer react to somebody that's non-compliant to one of their commands? I'm going right to that moment. And I'm going to basically look for, are there any coaching tips or tricks I can give this young officer? For example, once you give a command 2 or 3 times, don't keep repeating the same command over and over. Try a different tactic. Try some persuasive language like, hey, dude, you're a big guy. I don't want to fight you. Okay. Try something persuasive. Again, Tom, they're in the business of selling compliance and they need tools that are much more modern that can frame policing in that lens.
I love what you guys are doing. I think it seems like it rewards the people who are doing a great job. It gives them incentives to do a great job. I have to imagine that if I were in law enforcement, I might feel like, hey, there's a chance I get in trouble. And right now, Sarge doesn't really review a lot of stuff, and maybe he knows not to look too. He doesn't want to look. And now, if there's this robot checking everything, like it's going to find these little tic tac random things, and then we're going to have to write up a million reports.
No, here's Tom. Here's why that isn't the case. And don't forget, cops said the same thing about body cameras 10 years ago. They were wildly unpopular. They were called nanny cams. Everyone hated them. Now cops love them because they show the vast majority of citizen complaints are false or frivolous. So they protect the officer. This data that Truleo generates, same thing. Okay, so Tom, what I mean is being a police officer today is very politically risky. Let's say I'm a good officer and today I have a bad day. Let's say I even have a bad use of force. I hit somebody with my flashlight and I just lost my temper. Maybe I haven't eaten. Maybe I'm going through a divorce. Maybe I'm a human being. I had a terrible, awful day. Truleo can show my community I'm a good officer who had a bad day. And that's what cops want. It's a politically risky job. They don't necessarily trust or like their command staff. They don't know their command staff is going to have their back if they have a bad day. And so we need data. We need the data to show, actually, this officer, Anthony, he's encountered 5,000 non-compliant people. He gave out 10,000 de-escalation attempts. He's never had a use of force until today. This is his first one. Let me give an example. Tyreek Hill was stopped in Miami. I would love to know that officer, he gave 15 commands. He had 1 use of force. He gave 0 de-escalation attempts. I want to know, did he have a bad day? What kind of officer is this? Is this officer prone to not do de-escalation attempts, we could just look at his Truleo data and look past the previous 3 or 4 years. Do I have a problem with this officer? Does he know how to de-escalate or not? And so that's why this data is so important. It's not a nanny cam. I'm not looking to catch an officer saying a swear word. I'm looking to find officers that can sell compliance and replicate their behavior.
Yeah, that's a good point around being able to show the full context of an officer's history. And as a citizen, I might be more likely to maybe give the officer a little bit of a benefit of the doubt if it's like one incident. There must be some officers for whom this is not going to be good for them because maybe they really do have a pattern of excessive force.
Of course, there are officers or some percentage of cops that shouldn't be cops, Tom, of course. And but there's a larger percentage of cops that do a good job, that get no credit, and Truleo surfaces them. It raises them up in the department. They get credit, they get emails, they get notifications. And if other cops are sort of jealous or envious that those cops are getting praised, I say change your behavior. You know, Truleo's algorithm is open source. It's published on our website. How do you get better, highly professional scores? Give explanation, give out your business card, ask questions, introduce yourself. Don't use unprofessional language. Give de-escalation attempts when somebody's non-compliant. So it's like a very fair game. It's not based on anything full of bias. It's not based on how loud you are or soft-spoken you are. It's not, there's no video analysis. This is about the language that the officer uses.
Got it. So is it primarily looking at the spoken, like the audio data, or is it also analyzing the video?
So it's just analyzing the audio. Mm-hmm. It's converting the audio to text, and then we classify the text. So we're not even analyzing audio features like volume, cadence, clipping. All of that is still subject to bias. So we look at text because we think we really want to measure outcomes. We're mostly interested in, number one, what is the event of the call? Is this a domestic violence call? Is there a pursuit? Is there a Terry stop? What is happening? And we can tell what's happening just by the wording. When an officer is searching somebody, they say a very finite set of words. Do you have anything sharp in your pockets? I need you to turn around. You have any needles in your pocket? Are you going to stick me with anything? There's like certain language where you can determine a search is occurring. And so we are classifying the text, and we're, number one, surfacing the events. Number two, we're separating out officer from civilian, and we're focusing on how is the officer's language? What type of professionalism score can we award this officer? And as long as they don't use directed profanity, insults, or threats, that includes racial slurs, it includes unprofessional directed profanity, we call it. Now that's different than saying, oh shit, I dropped my pen. That's not directed profanity. Directed profanity is you are screaming and yelling or directing your profanity at the civilian or the citizen. And that's what we want to prevent, because we see in the data that it doesn't help sell compliance. And so if it did, we would be in favor of it. We say, sure, say X because it results in Y. But the reality is that unprofessional police language does not help you get better compliance.
So in the Tyreek Hill example, if that department was using Truleo, would that encounter have been flagged for the sergeant, or?
So all videos are quote unquote flagged, right, and categorized in some regard. So we process that video, and so that video in particular we processed, which means we generated labels, and so we generated a couple of directed profanities by the officer. That would have been sent to the supervisor. That's our workflow. If you've got officers that use impolite or unprofessional language, it goes to the supervisor. More problematic, you've got 15 commands and 1 use of force and 0 de-escalation attempts. And so that's really where the problem is. The problem is, how did we go from 15 commands to a use of force and 0 de-escalation attempts? That's really the problem. Is any human can look at that video and say, was that necessary? Tyreek was, in fact, non-compliant in the beginning of the video. He's asked to roll down the window. Okay. But it's the officer's professional job to try to de-escalate, to try to sell compliance. And in that particular video, Truleo generated labels. There wasn't an attempt to sell compliance. That's what I would talk to the officer about. I would say, hey, man, are you good? Anything going on in your life you want to talk about? Because I didn't see any effort to sell compliance in that particular interaction. And that's what's so powerful about Truleo. You can look back at this officer's career. You can look back at what's trending over the past 3 to 6 months, and you can really know your people. Tom, I think we, not in policing, probably underestimate like the turnover in policing and what's happening. Most of these cops, they're there 3-5 years, right? Maybe 10, 15 years ago, you got guys that would join, they do 20 or 25 years to get a pension. That's not what's happening anymore. That's one of the things going on, is that you've got officers, they're young, they're new. The average duration is 3.5 years. So there's so much turnover. You've got rookies supervising rookies, and they don't know their people. There's so much change, so much turnover. And so technology really helps that supervisor be a better coach, a better mentor, to know what's happening with he or she's people.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And I personally am a big believer that incentives drive outcomes. And if my local town said, hey, look, we want to raise some more money to reward our top law enforcement officers, based on how professional they are and how well they de-escalate things, I'd be like, hell yeah, like I'm happy to pitch in. What is the what are you hearing from the citizens? Are they generally like A+ in favor, or are they worried like, oh, now a company is going to be analyzing video that they're on, and concerns there?
I think for the most part, community members have been in favor of Truleo. I think we're widely supported by city councils and mayors and citizens. There is some concerns around surveillance and privacy. I think Truleo just has to be at the forefront of just educating folks on, we don't do video analysis. We're not doing facial recognition. Most importantly, Tom, we spent a lot of time and energy and money in automating civilian PII and officer PII redaction. That's personal identifiable information. So we don't even transcribe your name, your social, your address. None of that information goes to text. We don't want to, because we don't want to make that searchable. We don't want to give that to the department. We don't want to be in a surveillance bucket. And so I think once community members hear that and see that and look at all the precautions we've taken, that fear goes away pretty quickly.
Yeah. So who do you sell to? Are you selling to the police department, to the mayor, to the city council? Like who's the pulling Truleo in?
Yeah. So if you remember, like body cameras, we're sort of following a similar trajectory where like today, a chief of police decides, oh, I want the blue one or the yellow one or the green one, right? But it's because laws have been passed and they're mandated. And so then the police department has some choice. And so we do have lawmakers that we sell to. We do have city council and mayors that are interested in how do I improve police recruiting, retention, morale. So they are involved in the process today because it's early. This is a new category that we're defining, which we call police performance metrics. Now, the police are a major stakeholder. We do sell to chiefs. They're at the table. But they're usually there with the support of their city council and their mayor and their union. And so we find that it doesn't work in policing. Like you can't just go sell to a department and not have the union on board. Very powerful. They're very strong. And that chief who signs the contract, he may not be there next year. Chiefs are only chiefs for like 18 months or maybe 2.5 years. So our long-term customer is actually the city and the union. That's who's going to be there 5 years from now and 10 years from now.
So for the union, is the major value prop, hey, you're going to be able to present a more holistic, complete defense of members by having all of this data, like this is actually in your favor. Is that the pitch to them, or what's the
It's not
angle?
the number one thing, Tom. Here's the number one thing. If you're a union today in the United States, you're upset that you think a chief and a mayor can hire anybody they want to be a police officer. The chiefs and the mayors can lower standards to get somebody into a car because they got to fill bodies. So as a union leadership, I'm not happy about that. So I love Truleo, especially on those young probationary officers, because I feel like to become a union member, I think you should avoid X or accumulate enough Y. Otherwise, I'm just absorbing all that legal liability. Now, once you're a union member, as a union leader, my job is to give you a fair day in court, right? But unions actually are very supportive of Truleo on the probationary officer at the training, at the academy level. They're very supportive, and on like using Truleo as a national hiring standard. And then, yes, I think unions see Truleo as a way to create a complete body of work of an officer, so that that officer walks into court, they hit somebody with a flashlight. Are they being charged with felony assault? Maybe. It really depends on what has that officer done over the past few years. Maybe they encounter a lot of non-compliant people. They give out a lot of de-escalation attempts, and they use very little force. I think that context is very interesting to a union.
So if, let's say, a bunch of citizens said, let's say I lived in a city where there was a bunch of issues around, use of force or whatever. And then a bunch of citizens said, hey, we think that there should be automated, or maybe not automated, but just there should be regular reviews of these body cam footage, way more than the one a month thing.
Sure.
And let's say the union were opposed to that. Could the city council and the mayor just say, like, this is going to be the new requirement and that's it? Or do they need the assent of the union?
So from a legal perspective, you don't need the consent of a union. The city can just sign a contract directly with Truleo and then implement it at the department. I'm talking in terms of practicality. Like the reality on the ground is that, and I've seen this happen, like this happened in Seattle Police Department, where a chief purchases Truleo, uses it, but doesn't tell his union, doesn't have the support of the union, doesn't tell the union what he's doing. And then Seattle, I think it was like 2 weeks after they had signed a 2-year renewal, canceled Truleo because the union, went on the radio show and went in the newspaper and talked to their members about, being quote unquote spied on. So the reality is, like, the union is a powerful stakeholder, and the union is very, very powerful, and I think it wouldn't last. Let me say that a different way, Tom. My job is not to sell software to a department for 1 year. It's to create a happy customer. So I don't want to waste my time in departments where a chief signs and I can't create a happy reference client. That department has to be a reference client. Otherwise, I just am not interested in working there. So if they don't have the support of the union, it's very risky for Truleo to spend time and resources there.
So tell me about the biggest success you've seen with Truleo so far. Like, how do you know if this is really having the desired results that in theory we're talking about?
Well, we open ourselves up to random control trials. So those are scientific studies where academics go into departments, and we have several of those that have occurred. One's on our website, just got published. University of South Carolina, Professor Jeff Alpert, Professor Ian Adams. These are the top criminologists in the country. Another one's happening with ASU's Professor Michael White. He's studying Truleo in a bunch of departments in Arizona. So, Tom, the reason I do this, like I have a data science background coming from quant finance and trading. I'm interested in signal. I want to know for sure what is impacting and changing behavior, and how can I show and prove that with data? Because I want to build the best product and make the best impact possible. So in these random control trials, they break up the department into groups that don't have Truleo, but we process their videos. But they don't have Truleo, they can't access Truleo. No one talks to them about Truleo. They get no positive recognition. Then there's a group where only the officers can log in. Then there's a group where both the officers and the supervisors log in. They measure the changes and outcomes of those three groups. And this is how you get laws changed. This is how you get things mandated. You show that the group that logs in and meets with their supervisor and has 100% body camera review and is aware of it and gets all the benefits of it, they have better outcomes, meaning they have higher morale, higher wellness. They have better outcomes, meaning they have less non-compliant people. They have less upset persons. They have less uses of force. How is this possible, Tom? Like, you've got 10 officers, same neighborhood, same shift. The officers that have Truleo and talk and meet with their supervisors about their scores have better outcomes than the other officers. It's really exciting.
That's super cool. Yeah, I'm looking at this USC study here, reduction in unprofessional behavior, substandard professionalism, unprofessional interactions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that sounds. What's the downside? Like, how much are you going to raise my taxes when the local PD adds this?
I think they're going to lower your taxes, because think about the impact we would have to police misconduct lawsuits. You know, in Chicago, where I'm from, we spent $250 million last year on police misconduct lawsuit payouts. So Truleo is a massive, massive savings to a city manager or city council, to any risk pool that's insuring the police department. Truleo is like plugging a device into your car and making sure you're not out of control.
Yeah. What about how long does it take to get it set up, and do they have to install new hardware, new software, or get a bunch of engineers involved? Or
24 hours? No, of course not, Tom. They're 24 hours. They send an email to their evidence provider, which is basically, where are their body camera videos? They're all sitting in Microsoft Azure, Scuf Cloud. 24 hours, they permission us. We're processing their videos the next day. We'll fly out. We'll train them. We could do that over Zoom or do it in person. It's a lot like learning Outlook. There's just a bunch of different workflows and filters that they're going to set up. And usually that training takes 1 or 2 days. And so a police department will see better outcomes within 90 days of deploying Truleo. We will show them without a doubt, within 90 days, you have better outcomes than you did the previous 90 days.
I think I saw on LinkedIn that you shared some other features where, are you also assisting with the generation of like reports, since you have the transcript and there's like some busy work that you can save some of the officers as well, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So officers log into Truleo to see their scores, to see their previous interactions. And we love that they do that. The officers that do that, they tend to be the most squared away, most professional officers. They're basically reviewing their game time footage and they're trying to figure out what I could have said or done differently to get a better outcome. And so while they're logged into Truleo, you can click they can click any one of their body camera videos and convert that into a first draft narrative, which is like a police report. So we're trying to save them time. We're trying to summarize the body camera video into a narrative, and then they can copy paste that into whatever downstream workflow that they need to use. And so that saves them a little bit of time. We offer that for free, and we do that to build trust with police departments around the country. So it's a freemium giveaway, no gimmicks, no tricks. Like, we give it away for free because we're trying to remove the ickiness of AI, the scariness, the nanny cam, is this a gotcha tool? We really want to provide something of value to a police department. No questions asked. You can auto-generate body camera reports. And oh, by the way, here's all these other features that will help your department, and you can choose to turn them on or not.
I love it. Is there any discussion or, early movement towards legislative reform where this is just considered a requirement? Maybe it's obviously not vendor specific, but it's like, hey, look, any police department should, if you're going to get these, federal subsidies or state, finances that, you've got to do more than one. You got to do at least like 5, incidents per week per officer, and then they can pick what solution they want. That would be, I would imagine, good for Truleo.
Yes. Yeah, Tom, we're going to move in that direction. I personally don't spend a lot of time there. I think we're going to need lobbyists and, a whole bunch of machinery around that process in the future. But my job as an early stage seed startup CEO is to go out and sell, right? Is to build a team and build the best product and quality of service possible. I'm confident that the studies that we engage in, they will change laws. It will just be undeniable. There's just too many people that want an improvement in police professionalism. And when you have a tool like Truleo that says, look, when you review with AI 100% of body camera videos, you just get better outcomes, better quality of service for everybody. And you can do this at an incredibly affordable price. I just think there's not a lot of people who are going to say no to that. I'm on your show today, Tom, because we're all about increasing awareness. The more city managers, city council, mayors, the more people that are aware that this type of technology exists, it's just going to get normalized and expected. Just like everybody expects today that their police department has body cameras. That wasn't the expectation 7 years ago, right? NYPD didn't get body cameras till 2017. That we're just talking 7 years ago. So I think if you fast forward 7 years from now, everybody will be asking, what are the Truleo scores? What's that guy's de-escalation scores? What type of department is that? Show me their Truleo professionalism scores.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I would love to see, I actually would feel more comfortable as a citizen if on that body cam, it had a little, whatever, yellow circle or something that's like, oh, this shit's going to get reviewed and everybody's going to see what's going on. It's not just going to get buried in some file somewhere.
Yeah.
And I would be happy to pay a little bit more in taxes for that. Although I get your point that we actually might save money as taxpayers to avoid lawsuits and things.
Yeah. Now you're getting into gamification, and I could talk about this for hours. Truleo is going to create gamification and the right incentives. Think about the demand from private sector, right? Who just wants to fund good quality policing. You can imagine Target saying, look, or Starbucks saying, hey, look, if you guys can generate 1,000 instances of community gratitude this month, we'll build a park. Or, hey, this squad, if you guys can generate 10,000 de-escalation attempts, we'll donate your gym memberships, or we'll donate IFACs to the police department. There's a lot of ways to create the incentive structures here to get private businesses involved.
Yeah, I could even see like a list of the top 10 cities that are the most professional. Like I would be as a individual, I might be like, oh, if Phoenix got an award, I'd be like, I'm more likely to travel there, or than another city where I'm like, I don't know, maybe they don't do a lot of review there. That's great. So if there's actually already 50 people watching the live stream, and we'll have a few hundred on the replay. If people are watching this and they're like, hey, I want Truleo in my town, what can they do as citizens and just kind of regular taxpayers?
Yeah, so send your police chief an email and CC the city manager and the mayor and the city council. All of their email and contact information is publicly available. And just send the chief an email and ask, not if they've seen Truleo, because most chiefs have seen us by now. We've been in the market almost 3 years. We go to major conferences. We've made a big splash. They're aware of us. I would ask the question, why are you not using Truleo yet? And really ask them if they'll commit to securing a presentation of Truleo. Because look, status quo and apathy, these things exist in public safety, and we've just got to punch through that type of behavior. So if you want Truleo in your community, I think you've got to put everybody on that email and say, look, we, the community, expect this to be in the town.
Is there I'll just say it, I'm sure that's probably not great for your business, but is there a free trial option where we can say, hey, look, why wouldn't you try this with 5 officers? You got nothing to lose. You can get up and running in 24 hours.
Mhm.
And if it's junk, like, you're no worse off. We could just stop.
Yeah, the freemium report writing solution is going to get them like 90% of the way there, Tom. So they should just sign up for automated report writing. They're going to be able to see the videos that they generate a report. They'll see exactly all the different types of labels that Truleo generated. So it will give them a good taste of what would happen if they process 100% of their videos.
Well, you know what, AT? I think I might send a note to the. Have you already hit up the Palo Alto, California Police Department?
We've hit every department in California, Tom. We know who we are.
Okay. Well, I'll send a note to kind of nudge them. But given that we're a very tech forward place, I know a lot of citizens would be like, "Oh yeah, of course. Why?"
Yeah.
It's one of those things like, "Why haven't we been doing this?"
Tom, if you see where we're having success, it's in the South and it's with campus police. Why is that? Let me tell you what's the common denominator there. In the South, there's very little union resistance. South Carolina, North Carolina, Texas, Arizona, these tend to be sort of smaller departments. They're pretty professional. They're pretty squared away. They sometimes are new establishments, new towns. Arizona, especially South Carolina, these are growing states, and they're at will employment places. So the chiefs are like sheriffs. They're very, very strong. They can do whatever they want. And so we love being in the South. We don't spend a lot of time in the Northeast or in California because there's union resistance that you have to work through. It's just I have to think like a startup CEO and focus on where are my early adopters, and they're in the South. They're also in campus police. So where we are in California, it tends to be in campus police departments. Why? Because they report to a dean, and the dean has a brand, which is the campus. And that campus, that brand is everything to that dean. And you want a super squared away professional police department. And plus, we've got a lot of protests happening with Israel and Gaza. And so campus police and in the South, I think we've got a lot to do there throughout the rest of the year.
Okay, so it sounds like I will give it the college try, no pun intended, with our local PD. But there's some universities in the Bay Area as well that we can hit up in addition to that. So
appreciate your help, Tom.
Thank you. Is there anything else that I didn't ask you, AT, about Truleo that you wanted to share with the audience before we wrap up?
I think I just want to reiterate 100% body camera review is everybody wins. Like this is officers that use Truleo. And if you look at Mike White's surveys or the surveys for the other academics, their wellness actually improves, their morale improves. It's a very tough job. These guys accumulate a lot of trauma. They see dead kids, they see suicides, they just see horrific things. And when Truleo tells them they do a good job, it matters to them. They get a notification, they get an email, their bosses get CC'd. And so I just really want to emphasize there are a lot of good officers doing good work that are finally getting recognized. And this is the way you change policing. It's through recognition. It's not by using a stick and beating up these departments. It's by creating carrots and the right incentives and by recognizing good officers. And that's how you fix policing.
100%. 100%. I would hope that there are performance bonuses that are also, and this should factor into your chances for promotion. I mean, this is no different than any other organization. Like, you want to reward high performance. So I think what you guys are doing is great, and excited to be a small member of the cap table, and fingers crossed that things will go really well. I love that. For me, of course, I want you guys to be commercially successful, but I also think the mission is really noble. And right now, kind of everyone's losing with the lack of transparency.
That's right.
So let's get a situation where everybody wins.
That's exactly right. Without data, everybody loses. That's exactly right. Thanks for your support, Tom.
You bet, AT. I'll catch you later, man. Keep up the great work.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. That was an unusual Nerds for Humanity episode, but it's a cool technology intersecting with public policy. And I'm an investor, so full disclosure, I want them to be successful, but I really believe in what they're doing. And certainly from a tech point of view, it's a very, they're not splitting the atom here. They're going from voice to text and then analyzing the text and looking for certain words and patterns that are associated with very good or behavior that can be coached up. So if you are living in a city where you think it would be good to have Truleo for your PD, or as AT mentioned, if you have a university, maybe you're in college or you live in a college town, maybe ask their campus security if they're using Truleo. And I'm sure AT and his team would be happy to work with them. We're going back to politics probably this weekend. I put out a request for a Trump representative, could be any Trump supporter, to join me and a Harris supporter for a live conversation. I think I'll also open up to a Stein supporter and a libertarian. Chase Oliver is a libertarian nominee. So we'll see if this weekend, tomorrow afternoon, I can do it. And of course, it'll be on replay, and I'll summarize it in my newsletter, which is down there, nerdsforhumanity.substack.com. And it will also be on our podcast. So subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. This show exists because of people who support it, and those are our channel members. So I'm going to give them a shout out, and then I'm going to share, just because it is, election season, maybe the latest polling on the presidential election and betting odds. So hang on for that. But let's first give a shout out to, hold on. Oh, did they change the UI here? What's going on? There it is. See your members. We're going to start with our biggest supporter, who is Soldier One. He is a member of the Nerd Cabinet. So if you're watching this on YouTube and you'd like to keep this channel running, please consider becoming a member. It is not a money-making operation. But because of these members, we come pretty close to covering our costs. So Nerd Congress members are Kristen Bike and Zig PC. Nerd City Council, Gene, David, DK, Jack Lego, Mr. History, Mona, Von, Yang, Dean, Galessa, Jay Perrin, Dana, Jason, Daniel, Jeremy, Mickey, Yoda, Jackson, and Q. And then registered nerds, and that's only $1.99 a month, in order of who's been supporting us the longest within the registered nerds. So there they are. Okay, now let's look at the Trump versus Harris. Thank God it's not Trump versus Biden. We'd be screwed. By the way, this conversation with AT, I would imagine both MAGA and Harris supporters would be in favor of 100% body cam footage analysis. Who would be against this other than maybe the police unions? I would imagine, but I guess if the police unions are against it, maybe the Republicans would be against it, or maybe the Democrats would be against it. I'm not sure, but I think it's a great idea. Okay, let's look at the betting odds, and then we'll look at the latest polls and battleground states. Woo, yeah, this is looking good. All right. We have 53.5% chance that Harris will be the next president. 45.5% it will be Trump. And if you look at the trend, it was week ago, it was 52-47. And so now it's 53.5, 45.5. So it's trending in Kamala Harris's direction. It's a percentage point or two, so I wouldn't read into it too much, but certainly I'd rather be Harris than Trump right now. By the way, if you have any friends who are big Trump supporters, or maybe you're watching this as a Trump person, please take note that the betting odds favor Harris, and we'll look at the polls. So if in the scenario that Trump loses, please know that I know Trump supporters really love Trump. I think they sometimes forget that they might represent maybe 45% of the country, and then the other 55%, like, they really don't like him. And it's not because of propaganda or because they think Kamala Harris is the best thing since sliced bread. It's really that they just don't like Trump. This election is going to be, any election that has Donald Trump in it becomes a referendum on Trump. And certainly 2020 was, and I think 2024 will be as well. So just heads up, betting odds not in favor of Trump, but it is basically a coin flip. So on the other side, Harris supporters, if we lose, about half the country did kind of like Trump, and maybe a little bit less were ready to pull the lever for Kamala Harris. Now, in terms of the national polls, let's take a look-see here. You have got national polls 48-45. I mean, a 2.8 difference. At the end of August, it was 48-44. So you could argue Trump's actually a little bit higher now than he was kind of in early August. He's always been a couple points behind, which is kind of scary for Harris supporters, because Trump tends to poll a little worse than he will actually perform at the ballot box. I think there's a lot of people who might support him but aren't comfortable saying that they support him to pollsters. Now, national polls don't determine elections. We know that Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, North Carolina, maybe Arizona, they are the ones that are going to determine this election. No offense to everybody that doesn't live in those states, but you can still volunteer in those states. So let's start with Pennsylvania, the big prize. Oh my God, does it get any closer than this? 48.2 to 46.8. I mean, especially if you add in the Trump kind of, stealth vote, and you say he really has maybe another 2 percentage points, then he might even be up in Pennsylvania by like half a percentage point. So that's not great for Harris, but you'd want to see Harris 3 points above to kind of feel a little more comfortable. Wisconsin, ooh, very close. She's up, but 1.8. I mean, it's a tie. Michigan, okay, that's a little better. 48.5 to 45.9. Michigan's a little better. North Carolina, Jesus, Mary and Joseph. Are you guys seeing this? What in the Sam Hill? That's basically tied. Arizona, I mean, that's not tied. That's Trump, because when Trump ties in a poll, he does, like, again, 1 or 2 points higher. Woo, same, super close in Arizona too. Just for giggles, what about Florida? I mean, he should be crushing it in Florida. Yeah, he's got Florida. So TLDR is, if you want Harris to win and you've been thinking about donating, like, don't think about it, do it. If you want Harris to win and you've been thinking about volunteering, like, don't think about it, do it. And I suppose if you want Trump, in the spirit of democracy, you should donate and volunteer for him as well. I will personally be fine if you decide to stay home, but we'll see. I think North Carolina, the big question is, will Trump's endorsement of the lieutenant governor, who allegedly referred to himself as the Black Nazi, who was very critical of transgender people, but I guess allegedly is kind of like attracted to them, which is fine with me. I think it's just the hypocrisy. It's like, okay, look, just then stop making speeches attacking trans people if you have this fondness for them. So either way, I don't know if that'll change anything in North Carolina, but when this race is so close, you never know. I guess maybe the big moment will be the J.D. Vance, Tim Walz debate. So we'll see how that goes. And then I'm planning to do a bunch of videos coming up highlighting Harris's policy positions, because a lot of my MAGA family are like, oh, Kamala doesn't have one position. And it's like, no, actually she does. So we should probably go over that. And I've done some videos around the reduction in inflation, which I don't think people are giving Biden or Harris credit for. Like, it's down to 2.5 from 9 back in June of 2022. So we as a country have cut our inflation by a third, and then we're dropping interest rates by 0.5 percentage point. So that's encouraging. And the stock market is doing, I know Trump promised everyone that the day after Biden got elected, the stock market and your 401ks would be gone. Turns out your 401ks are up about 50% versus when Biden was sworn in. So yet another Trump prediction that didn't come true. There's a surprise. I'm told that he has concepts of a healthcare plan that are going to be released in 2 weeks. So I guess we'll see if that happens. If you can't become a member, but you like this channel, the next best thing you can do is hook me up with a like and share, and then comment below what you think of Truleo. Again, check those guys out and ask your mayor and city council if they're using it, and if not, why not? Let's see, for community members. Interesting. Yes. Oops, that's setting up a meeting. Objective, unbiased, consistent analysis of interactions, responsible transcriptions that still protects privacy. Yeah, I mean, why wouldn't you want accountability? It's all upside. I mean, I'm a big fan of these guys. All right, I will see you guys later. Have a wonderful weekend. Bye, nerds.